and I was shook. And oh my gosh, I said something, you know when you're just chatting shit, like as soon as I sat down, that's when I knew, yeah, I'm applying to Cambridge, yeah, this is Cambridge. Like, look at the clock and I'm like, damn, I should be in Homerton right now. Hi guys, hello, welcome back. I was asked to do a video addressing my Cambridge interview. Hopefully it will help you when thinking about your application. So prior to that, obviously I'd had interview practice. So one of my teachers brought in a teacher from St. Mark's. Her child went to Oxford and she's an English teacher, so she came in to interview me. And I also had a mock interview with a science teacher that did natural sciences here at Cambridge, and another interview with a teacher that had just come into my school, and he did first PPE at Oxford and then he did English at Oxford, so I had an interview with him. So in total I got to have 3 practice interviews, and I know that some people don't have the luxury of getting practice interviews. So if you're one of those people that doesn't and you are taking your application really seriously, then email me and hopefully I can either interview you or could put you in contact with one of my friends that's doing the subject that you're applying for and ask if they can give you a mock interview, if that would help. So in those mock interviews, I remember the one with the science teacher. She was asking me, so like, why Homerton and why Cambridge? And so they won't ask you that. Well, I didn't get asked that, but that's kind of what she was asking. She was asking more about the why and less specific about my personal statement. But it was nice to be able to just get into the mode of speaking to someone about why you like something. That's very important and something that you have to get used to and try to practice. She gave me helpful interview tips. So when I talk and I'm really passionate about something, or I'm talking like really seriously, then I'll talk with my hands a lot, and I don't know, for some people it might be a bit distracting, so she was just like less hand movement, but in my interview I ended up doing the most. So in my interview with the teacher that had been to Oxford, that was much more similar to the interview that you'd get at Cambridge, although it was harder. I would say that interview was harder. He asked me some out there questions and yeah, I think that interview was definitely harder than my real interviews. It was more to do with English literature itself. I had unseen material, which you will have in your real interview, so it's useful to go over your if you are doing interviews where you have to see unseen material and comment on it, it's useful to practice on those skills, and you will have practiced on those skills by doing your your entrance exams anyway. I remember like a good technique I got into with that interview was to ask questions if you don't know what a word means, and like they were like, he was just giving me like tips on how to like control the interview more, because the interview is about you and where you want to take it, and you do have to direct the interview, because when you get here it's similar to the way in which in supervisions you will have to direct and steer the conversation. The interview with the woman that was brought in, again, it was just looking over unseen material, and that was more like the unseen material I had was more to do with like form, and I didn't know like my form, so I was like panicking, but in hindsight it didn't really matter. I think sometimes mock interviews or interviews that your teachers can set up for you can be like more detrimental than good, because you might end up panicking. Was to make my folder with all my material. So I showed this in my Oxbridge applications video that I had a folder about my application. So I had a folder with literary terms, with unseen poetry, with everything I said about my personal statement broken down, with a bunch of stuff. I'll leave that down below. And So that really helped me to prepare for my interview. But yeah, if you're doing just mock interviews with teachers, try not to psych out too much, because the real thing will be very, very different. And it might be different good or different bad, but it will be different. Interview day. So I decided that I would take the train to Cambridge in the morning. There was an option to sleep over the night before to prepare for your interview, but no, I wanted to take the train because I'd taken the train to Cambridge twice before for my Cambridge Sutton Trust Summer School and my Homerton College Summer School, and I just like the journey, so I thought that would be a nice way to like mentally prepare for the interview, because my interview was like at one at like 11 or 12 and then the next one at like 1. So yeah, I had 2 interviews. So I took the train up in the morning, and then I went to the Costa that's up there and I sat there and had a panini and a hot chocolate, was texting my friends. You know, the best thing you can do in the morning of the interview is just like keep calm. Please keep calm. I told my friends that had interviews coming up, the major thing I learned about interviews is that you have no time to be nervous, as in you actually won't be nervous because there is no time to be nervous, and I'll explain a bit about that in a bit when I talk about what I did when I get to college. So yeah, I look at the clock and I'm like, damn, I should be in Homerton right now, and Homerton is a bit of a walk, so I literally had to like rush to Homerton, got here, got to the interview room where there were a bunch of other undergraduates interviewing for a bunch of different things, and that can be intimidating. But yeah, so I'm glad that I came a bit, like not late, but I came like on time to kind of, it meant that I didn't have to interact with other students, because I think that would just like freak me out. I just like to be solitary in those kind of situations. Even before exams, I don't like to talk to anyone. People try to talk to me and I literally walk away because I just like to be by myself. So I arrived at Homerton, literally signed in. As soon as I signed in, they were like, write down all the texts you've read or enjoyed recently. So I literally had to write down all the texts, but luckily I had my Oxbridge interview folder, English folder, whatever, and I literally had a list of texts that I found interesting and I wanted to talk about. So I just wrote those texts down. And then second or third year came in and they were like, you need to do your reading, you need to start your reading, because you have to do read a text, read some unseen material before each interview. So for the first interview, they took me into the library, sat down. It was a big chunk of prose, and I still have it at home. It was a big chunk of prose and I was shook. As soon as I sat down, that's when I knew, yeah, I'm applying to Cambridge. Yeah, this is Cambridge. Like, because the whole time I was just so chill about it. But as soon as I put my eyes on that piece of paper, I knew it was deep. I actually knew it was deep. It's like, it was very difficult, but I tried to get through it as much as possible and like annotate it. And then he came to pick me up. We walked to the interview room and they were still interviewing someone, luckily, so I just had a bit of time to calm down. But like I said, you have no time to be nervous. Like, I wasn't nervous because there was no time to be like panicking and nervous about anything, because I'm literally going in to do my interview in a couple of minutes. So then I walk in, I'm wearing like my Zara like thing that looks like a gown, like the grey one, and I have my big ass bag because I like traveled with everything. And then the guy is like, oh, do you want to take off your jacket? And I was like, no, because it wasn't a jacket. I found that so awkward. And then I sat down, and when you sit in the chair, it was like I sat down and it was like I sunk. It was like literally going into the sunken place. I was so shook. And I put my bag down, introduced myself, shook their hands, whatever. You do the formalities. Make sure you shake their hands. I feel like the format of my interview was like good cop, bad cop. So first it started with good cop, and in that we spoke about Macbeth a bit, because I'd mentioned it in my personal statement, and then we'd spoken about my photography A-level. So we did speak quite extensively about photography, and again I mentioned that in my A-level and I in my personal statement, and I did it for A-level. So I said in the personal statement video with Temi that for me, in my personal opinion, when applying to Cambridge, the most important thing for a humanities student particularly an English student, is your personal statement, because it will make up the basis of your interview. They're not going to pull things out of the air. They will pick on what you said in your personal statement. That's why you have to be careful what you say. You have to read what you say you've read, and you just have to know that you're passionate about it and not just talking about it just to talk about it and you think that this will impress the academics. It doesn't work like that, and they can see through that. I got asked a bit about Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, and oh my gosh, I said something, you know when you're just chatting shit, like I started chatting shit, and one of the interviewers caught onto it, and then they were like, can you develop on that point? And in my head I was like, mate, like, no, I can't, because I didn't mean to say that. If you need to ask for a second to think, literally just say, can I think about that for a second? Because even now in my supervisions, you literally say, I'm thinking, or you say, can I have a second to think about that when you get asked a question. So if you're literally doing that in the interview, they'll see that your supervision material, that's kind of what it's for, to see that you can handle this supervision or tutorial style of learning. So try to just think out loud. When people used to say think out loud, I didn't know what that meant, so I'd get frustrated, but it's literally just for you to say, right now I'm thinking that. So they can trace the line of your thoughts. Don't get put off if they're like taking notes. And halfway through my interview, the good cop like was just like looked so bored and like was staring at out the window. Like interviewers can do things to like trip you up or put you off. So I was talking really passionately and like looking at them both in the eye, but he was like literally just staring out the window and looked bored. So don't let that put you off, because in my head I was like panicking, like, oh my gosh, am I saying something wrong? To look over the unseen material. So I had taken on what I'd employed from my mock interview with the teacher from Oxford. So I was like, I don't know what this word means, can you clarify that? Because in my mock interview with my the teacher from Oxford, I didn't know what a word meant, so I asked what it meant, and then as soon as I gauged the meaning, it opened up like so much interpretation for me, and I was actually then delving deeper into the text. So I thought, okay, let me just do that in this interview, and then the person was like, you don't need to know what every word means. And it was so awkward. I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But yeah, I felt like with that text, because it was a piece of prose, and guys, it was hard. And I felt like I was kind of going in circles, like, because they keep asking you like, explain yourself, explain yourself, explain yourself. Every time you say something, explain yourself, explain yourself. And you have to refer to the text to do it. I was shook, man. And I like felt like I was going in circles, but it is what it is. But that interview was done. It lasted about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I had a next interview, so I had to go upstairs and prepare for my next interview. And again, I got an unseen piece of material, and this time again someone was still being interviewed, so I had a bit of time. So I read the text, and after having just gone through my first interview, I was like, okay, I'm feeling much more comfortable, feeling much more cool, I've got this, right? And then one of the interviewers was late, because there was 3 people in that interview, and one of the interviewers had just arrived like when I was reading the text. So my interviewer, which is now my DOS, was like, oh, you can have like 5 extra minutes if you like. And then I was like I'm not gonna say no. And so I like just sat there. I sat there, and then I turned the paper around, and there was stuff on the back page, and my heart dropped. I was like, I thought I had this. I thought this text was easy. I thought it was gonna be calm. And I turned the page around, and there was still stuff I hadn't read, and I wanted to cry. So I had to literally like skim read it. And then I thought, okay, I don't wanna like take the piss and take too much time. So like, let me get up and just go in. So I went up and went in, and he was like, oh, I was just about to come and get you actually. So yeah, so I went in, sat down. This time I didn't fall. I didn't go into the sunken place. It was like a hard chair, and there were 3 people sitting in front of me this time. So yeah, it was a bit intimidating, but I thought, okay, you've got this, be confident, it's your last interview here. So again, the main bit about my interview, it started with a discussion about Macbeth. I don't know if they like talk about the questions that they ask. So because I was asked previously about Macbeth in the other interview, I was more comfortable than talking about it. So in this interview, because I was asked about it again, it was like, it went even smoother, if that makes sense. And then We had a conversation about, what else? We had a conversation about the Globe Theatre production, because I had mentioned that in my personal statement. So we had basically conversations deriving from different aspects of my personal statement. And because you send in written work, that's also another aspect of the Oxbridge application. I had to send in 2 pieces of written work. So one of the interviewers then asked me, oh, so you're talking your written work about this, about atonement. But he asked me, this guy asked me to link what I'd said in my written work. So these are essays from year 12 basically, because they ask you to send in work that you've done before. Don't rewrite things, guys. There's no point. They just want to see you raw and genuine. I really did think I was going to rewrite an essay, but I thought, okay, no, it's not worth it. Just like send in your raw, genuine essays. So I did. And this guy asked me to link what I'd written in a year 12 essay to what I'd written in my personal statement. And I was shook. I was sitting there like, are you okay? And I the more I spoke, the more it started making sense and I could piece it together and it became really interesting. Again, we went over the unseen text. That went really well. It was such an interesting conversation. And yeah, they asked if you have any questions at the end and I was like, yeah, no. And then that was about it. Again, it was like 15 to 20 minutes and then I left. Right? I remember as soon as I left, because there was an Oxbridge application group chat for the people applying to Oxbridge in my school, and I was literally like in caps lock, oh my gosh guys, I want to do that again, because I literally loved it. I really loved that experience. It was really cool. So I think it's just about reminding yourself that it's something to enjoy. Don't be scared about it. All of this is stuff to enjoy. You shouldn't be intimidated and there should be nothing to intimidate you. Just go into it with the mindset that no matter how I do and no matter what happens, I'm going to enjoy this process. I said, we had such interesting conversations, and then my teacher said the word you used, conversation, is a really good sign. So you might want to make it like that. You want to make it conversational, then it will take away from the interview aspect, and then they'll see that you're a student that they actually can supervise and talk to. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any other questions, leave them down below and I'll see you later. Bye.